Beautiful friends on the internet, how are you all doing? Okay, welcome to another amazing tutorial. So remember I told you guys that I was cooking something amazing. This is one of it. I think I still have others pending. So today we are going to be looking at how we can create a simple web app and that can help us to generate App Store and Play Store graphics. Okay, so if you want to upload your app to Play Store, you want to upload your app to App Store, you have to design graphics with specific dimensions before you will be able to upload it, right? So here you can see the UI, how the final product is going to look like. And right here now you can see we have the preview screen where you can see the mock-up of your app, and you can see how the design is going to look when you generate it, right? And you can select if you want to render for iOS, so it will give you this iOS mockup view. If you want to render for Android, it's going to give you this Android mockup view. And we have Android phone, so if you want Android tablet, it's going to give you a tablet kind of view. And if you want iOS tablet, it's going to give you an iPad mockup, right? So let's do for iOS Android, iOS phone. So here you can see the UI looking great and cool. So right now what we are going to do next is to upload an app image, okay, that we want to use in so you want to make sure you screenshot your app, okay, using iPhone. Once you screenshot it, you can click on upload app image and you can select let's use one of these, okay. So here we have, I think this image is not too clear, so let's take something else. All right, so you can see we have the UI that I just screenshot Twitter, Twitter UI for this. You can see the UI has been replaced and fits properly inside the view. So if you want to see for Android as well, once you go here, and this is for iOS, so it would not be nice to use iOS screenshot for Android mockup. So you want to select iOS Android mockup that will show you properly how it's going to look on Android, right? So let's go back to how the one we wanted to create, which is for iOS phone, and I'm going to change this guy back to how it was. Or you can decide to even use any kind of image, if you want, just makes it look cool. All right, so you can now select background color. Say you don't like this color, you want to use something like a red background for it. It's cool, you can use a red background. If you want to add a title, you can say watch free video, okay. You can add a subtitle, you can still leave it if you don't want. You can say video screen, okay. And you can change the text color, right? You can go here and say text color, I want it to be black, okay. You can change it and it's going to take effect. Then now you can add the dimensions that you want to generate these stuff as. So I want to generate it for iOS phone, so I'm going to use the dimension of 1125. So you want to make sure that, because App Store, when you're uploading, they will be telling you the type of dimensions they require, okay. So you want to take note of that. So once then for the height, I'm going to use 436, okay. So once this is done, you can now click on, you can still change the background color to white if you want, okay. So it has so many colors that you can work with, right? So once you click on save, it's going to start processing. Just give it some few seconds, and once it's done, it's going to download it inside your download folder or anywhere. So you want to view it, and when you view it, so it's opening on my other screen. So this is how it looks. Awesome. So you can see how amazing it is. You can just play around with it, and so this is for Android. So in order to cut this video short, I'm going to stop here and then we start the integration. All right, so now that we know how the whole platform is going to look like, the functionality, the use case and everything, now we can start working. So you can see here on my left is just a normal UI. So this is actually, since this is going to be a web app, I have my web browser open, which is a Chrome browser. So I'm going to shrink it so everything can show perfectly, okay. So I'm going to increase the size a little bit, and you can see here we just have our main.dat and nothing much, just a simple app. So but before I start, I need to add the various dependencies that we'll be using for this project. So the first dependency I'll be adding is a provider. We'll be using provider to manage the state. I'll also be using the image picker, so it will help us to pick image from the user's gallery. And we also need the device frame that will give us the mockup view. And we also need screenshots. screenshot will help us to screenshot the screen and then download it into the user's device. So we have a file saver, to save it into the user's device. And we have image. So image will help us to more like, apply the different dimensions for the once the image has been captured. All right. So you guys are going to see how all these are used. All right. So I'm going to explain it deeply, and you have a lot to learn though. So when you are adding a new plugin or new dependency, you want to key your app and we run it again. So for now, we are just going to wait for this stuff to run, and then once you start running, we can now start designing. You can see the app is up and running. So the next thing we want to do now is more like to work on our main.dat. Okay. And so I'm going to remove the whole of this because we don't really need it anymore. So I'm going to have a void main. So I'm just going to generate a new one. I normally do this when I'm creating a new app, just trying to generate everything. So I believe you all already have idea about this. So, all right. So inside my app, I'm going to return a material widget. Okay. Material app. Okay, so here it returns a home, which is going to be the home page of our app, right? So the next thing I want to do is to create a directory. So I just want to structure our project the way it's going to look like now. So I'll create a first directory. So I'll call this screen. Okay, so this will hold all our screen. And remember, we are using a provider, so we need to separate the logic from the UI. Okay, so that means I'm going to have a directory again called provider, and provider, I'm going to have a simple file called general provider. So inside here, I'm going to have all my use cases, everything I want to do inside my provider is going to be inside here. Okay. So for the screens, we can now have our home page, okay, that will hold more like the home of everything. And I will have another screen that I can call a toolbar screen. So the toolbar screen is going to hold, let's call it toolbar layout. It's going to hold all those, the buttons to change icons and everything, right? If you look at the initial video that I showed you guys, that I demoed in the beginning of this video, you will understand. So we have a preview layout that will just show the main preview, based on what we are designing, is going to show it for us. So inside the home page, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to design, I'm going to use a stateful widget here, and it's going to be home page, right? So inside here is going to have I'm going to be using a scaffold widget actually. So I'll have a body. So that body is just going to have a container with a padding, and so we have a container like so, and a padding, because I want to add some kind of padding around it. So let it just be 10. And so it's going to be a row. So one view here that's going to show the preview, and this other side is going to show the toolbar. So it's going to be a row based on how the UI looks. So this is it. So I'm going to import this guy inside our home page here, and so that is it. Save it. Now we have an empty UI and nothing is actually here. So moving forward, I need to create two new scaffold layouts, which is going to be the preview layout, okay, where we're going to see the screen, and we also have to create a toolbar layout, right? So in here, I'm going to have preview layout, and I'm also going to have a toolbar layout. Okay, so don't be scared. We are going to start working on this soon. So I'm going to create a new stateful widget here. So I will call this one preview layout. Okay, like so. And I'm going to quickly move it inside our home page where we have these widgets. So put in the preview layout and go ahead and import it, right? Cool. So that looks pretty cool. So what we are going to do next, I think you just need to have some const here. All right. So you can see we just have a preview layout. You can see how it's looking because it's separated, because the other one is going to be here. So going back to our preview layout, I'm going to use a column instead of a scaffold, because a column will just hold everything inside the UI. It's going to hold the preview container, also going to hold just more like a column basically. So we have a column here, and not really, let's say instead of using a column, we can use something like maybe an expanded widget, if that one, yeah, let's say, because it's only just that stuff that we are having inside here. So I'm going to use an expanded widget so you can fill in all the screens. And in here I will have a container, okay, with a child. All right, so the container is going to have a container will just be like the main UI, okay, and inside, let me style it first so you guys can see how the whole stuff is going to look like. So the width, I'm going to give it a width because I don't want it to cover the whole screen. So the width is going to be a media query dot of context, and we can say dot size dot width. So I want to divide it. Let's say if I do dot width, that means it's taking the whole screen, which is not really good and it's not perfect. So what I need to do here is to divide it by let's say 1.5, so it's not going to take the whole UI, right? And I'm going to add a decoration to it. All right, so now that we have this, I'm going to add a background color so the UI is going to like be visible. So okay. So yeah, so you can see it's taking the whole screen. Even after adding the divided by so, but that's cool. We are going to like work on it soon, but for now no issues, no need to be afraid. So now we are going to like add I think some kind of padding if we want, because this we need to add image, right? But before then, let's add another container. So this container will represent the one that we are going to like screenshot, okay? So whenever I want to save, this is going to be the one we are going to screenshot, okay? So I'm going to add a, let's say, a column to this, and it's going to have the first column is going to take the title and also the subtitle, right? So that means I'm going to have this is the children, so I'm going to have a column, the first one, and so this one represents the title and subtitle screen. All right, so we are going to create the widgets for adding the title. So the first one is going to be, yeah, title goes here, and we can style it. So test align, so maybe center, and we can add some style to it. And now, okay, so now we have that. I'm also going to make it bold and also add a font weight to it. So font weight, which is font weight of bold, and a font size, which is going to be 22, right? So yeah, so that's it for the title, and I'm going to add the next one, which is going to be for the subtitle, right? So I think all these stuffs are showing like this. Let's just use some const here. All this warning, okay? So this one is going to be subtitle, right? And the subtitle is going to have a font size of 18, right? So we have 18, and the font weight, the color is also going to be black, and this one is going to be here. So I'm going to add a margin because I need to add some space in between both of them. So I will create a container with a margin. So container doesn't have to be inside const, okay? So I'll add a margin to it, and instead of this, it should be only, so I will say top 10. All right, so it's looking great, and you can see the subtitle is smaller than the title. So moving on, I need to add some kind of space around here, because if you see, there's no space between the container and the title. So that means I need to wrap this container. I need to create a padding to make this one 30, okay? Yeah, so it's looking great now. Awesome. So I also want to add some radius around the container. So that means I need to use a decoration for this, and border radius, no. border radius is circular, so just make it 10. Yeah, so just okay. Seems this one is pretty different from the main UI, right? So this container represents the main container, but this other one that I'm designing, it's the one that we are going to screenshot. So that means I need to add its own color. So let me use colors.gray here. All right, cool, amazing. All right, so subtitle, I'm going to add the device frame container. Remember, we added the device frame inside our prospect.yml file, so we are going to be using that to render the device frame. So I'm going to have an expanded widget that will have a child, which we are going to call device frame. So if you see here, device frame takes two properties. It takes three actually, but the initial one is going to be the orientation, which is portrait. So it takes the device, which we are going to specify the type of device we want to show. So in this case, I'm going to start with 1 because it's something we are going to modify later. So I'm going to say think device info dot, no, I think it's devices dot iOS dot, let's say iPhone 14 or iPhone 13, and the screen on the other hand represents the UI, more like the image you want to show, right? So in that case, I'm going to just have the screen just represents the image you want to show inside the screen, which is the design that you're going to upload, okay, your app screenshot and all that. So for now, since we don't have a design yet, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a text that says no image added. Okay, all these things are things we are going to modify later. So save it. You can see how it's looking. You can see test feed. We can use center to just render it to the center, and I'm going to add a style to it. So that means I'm going to grab this guy. Okay, I'm going to grab this guy. Yeah, so it's style, which is going to be white, and font weight and font size. Yeah, so leave it like that, no image added. Awesome. So we have our screenshots, which is our device frame. We also have our title, we have our subtitle as well. And yeah, so this explains a lot. And all right, so now that we have the title, subtitle, and the device frame in place, the next thing we are going to focus on is the toolbar. So in the initial video that I actually demoed, you can see the toolbar was actually on the right side while the device frame was on the left side. So now that we have the device frame and the preview screen set up, the next thing we are going to work on now is the toolbar UI. So the toolbar UI is just going to be, we're going to have a, and this is going to be a little bit maybe kind of a long one, but yeah, let's get to it. So I'm going to have a stateful widget here too, and we can have it toolbar, toolbar layout. Okay, so inside here now we are going to have a, still going to be an expanded widget too, because we want it to take its own space. Okay, and we have an expanded widget. So inside here we can have, we're going to have a single child script view because I want it to be responsive, right? But before adding that single child script view, let me show you how it will be when it's not responsive. So I'm going to have a column, right? So now I'm going to go over to our home screen, our home page screen, and add the toolbar layout. Yeah, cool. Save it. So you can see now it has taken its place. So yeah, and the other space is for the toolbar, right? So you can maybe improve, elongate, whatever. So now we can go over to, yeah, let's continue with the design here. So the next thing I want to do is to create a platform values because we need to show the first platform, which is for, we need to show for Android and iOS. Okay, so that means I need to create what is it called, a role. So it's going to be wrapped inside a role, right? So we have role children, and this children is going to represent the list dot, let's say, generate 2 items, right? Because it's going to be So inside here, I'm going to return let's say gesture detector on tab property. For now, let's leave it like this, and we are going to have a child widget which takes in a container, right? So this container is going to be where we just display the platform name, right? So I'm going to have a child and call it test, and this is going to be, for now, let's just name it Android. Okay, save it. Not save, so save it. You can see we have Android because it's 2, but it's not properly designed. It's not like looking great, so we need to like make it look better. So that means I need to wrap this guy with an expanded widget here. Okay, awesome. So it's looking great, and the next thing I want to do now is to make it to add a padding and also a margin left and also a decoration to it, right? So I'm going to add a margin here inside here, and I'm also going to add a decoration because I want to add some colors. So I have a color which is colors.blue, and I'm going to add a border radius. Border radius is circular, which is 10. Right? So yeah, this is looking great. Give it a test align to alignment.center. Okay, so while we have that, I'm also going to style this test widget a little bit. So let's have a test style that takes a font weight .bold. Okay, and we can also have a color for it. So the color is going to be colors.white. Cool. So we have these 2 icons. Okay, but now I need to make it selectable. So that means I will need to go over to I want to create an enum for it. Create an enum directory. So inside the enum, I'm going to have enums.dat. Okay, so inside the enums, I'm going to create a platform type which is iOS and Android, right? So let's just ignore this stuff. So Android, iOS and Android. So going back to our toolbar screen, the length is not going to be this. It's going to be the platform type .values.length. Okay, so I also want to get the platform. So I would say based on the index, right? So I have platform equals to the platform type .values, and we pass in the index, like so. All right, so now we just have to pass in platform.name. Okay, invalid constant. Save it. Yeah, you can see we have the iOS and Android. So this needs to be selectable, right? When you click iOS, a new UI should show. When you click Android, a new UI should show. But no need to rush. Let's move over to the other side, which is more like creating the change layout view that have the tablet and also the Android, right? So I'm going to be using the same thing here. So I'm going to use this guy as well. So that means I will have this. So I will add some divider. So to just add divider in between it. Okay. Save it. I think the divider should be showing. Look properly. Yeah. So that's the divider. And below here, I'm going to add, I just copied this guy and pasted it. So I'm going to have another one, iOS, Android, but it's not going to be iOS, Android this time. Rather, it's going to be tablet and phone. So that means I need to create another enum for it. And we have tablet and phone. So instead of having a platform view here, I'm going to change this to mockup view. Okay. Yeah, so we have tablet and phone in place. All right, so that is it for that guy. So the next thing we are going to be doing now is to add upload image widget. So we have we need to add a widget for uploading image, more like a button. So I already have this, so I'm going to add a divider here, and inside here I'm going to add this guy. So this is more like a test widget container with upload app image, and because this is going to be clickable, so that means I need to wrap it with a gesture detector. Okay, so this one will work more like picking up image from the user's gallery or file explorer. Okay, so I'm also going to add another divider below it. Okay, so this is not like, you know, a kind of sweet method of doing this, so you might want to like add maybe create a custom button that you'll be using. Okay, so I'll still be using this button again because I want to create where we have the background color and the text color kind of buttons for that. So that means this needs to be in a row because it's going to be aligned horizontally. So I'm going to use the first one is going to be I'm going to add it to 2. Currently is actually upload app image, so I'm going to change this to background color. So it doesn't matter because you can actually create this UI the way you want. Okay, so the only thing that matters here, I want to show you the whole concept, how you can use all those packages and how you can create this simple mockup generator, right? So you can change the UI to suit your use case, and yeah, anyhow you want it to be. So I have my expanded widget here to just make it look properly aligned, and I'll have the same one here, and each of these widgets need to have a gesture detector, right? Because they need to be tapped when you want to pick an image, and also when you want to pick a color, right? I think there is one package that I didn't add, which is more like a color picker. I think I missed that. I'm supposed to add that dependency because it will help us to pick color, yeah, from this. So I didn't add that color picker dependency. So we need to go to our prospect.yml file. All right, so go ahead and select the first one. So from here you can just add it. So what we just have to do is to go to our our terminal and just run this command, flutter pop add color picker. Okay, so it's going to generate it for us and add everything that is needed. So I think this. So once that is added, we can go ahead and start our integration. But I would advise, you know, color picker, it's more like so no need to like, you know, kill the app and run it again. So once we have our test color in place, the next thing we need to add now is we have our text color UI and also for background color as well. So the next thing we need to add now is our divider as usual, you know, just to add those divider in between each widget. So I'm going to add a test form feed. So this test form feed will be used to just help us add a. So we are going to use the test form feed to add a, what's it called? To add the title, and also another test form feed to add subtitle. So that means I need to use padding here, right? Not really that. So let me use a test form feed. Okay, we added a decoration to it, right? And we have the test enter title. Now it's not really looking cool, so that means we need to wrap this guy with a padding. Nope. And yeah, only so we have left, so make it 10. All right, sweet. So the next thing we want to add is a maximum line, because this title you might want to like add many, so make sure that enter will allow the users to add multiple items. So I can add a max line of 3. Okay, and we have an change property that we'll be using to listen to the changes, because if you notice in that video that I showed you guys before the beginning of this video, once the user is typing, we are changing these values one after the other, right? So I'm trying to avoid set states. That's why we have the, you can see, multiple lines. So that's why we have the provider to help us, you know, manage the states and everything. So the next one I'm going to add is a view for adding subtitle, right? Cool. So once we add our subtitle, yeah, we are good to go. And the next view again that I need to add is for 2 things, which is one is for the thing for our dimensions, right? So we have this. I'm still going to copy this because it's going to be the same thing, more like similar, but I don't think I'll be adding a padding to it. So right here I'm going to use, okay, I think I can just use the padding as well. So inside here I'll have this stuff, enter title, but it's going to be wrapped in a row because I need to have the dimensions, which is for adding width and also for adding the height. So that means I need to wrap this with a row widget and wrap this with an expanded widget as well. And yeah, cool. So this is going to be width in pixel, right? Yeah, so we're going to specify that. We have height in pixel, right? Cool, awesome. But we don't need to specify max line to them. So yeah, so and the next thing we need to do is more like to add a space between them. So add a size box, which is width of 10. Cool, we are good to go now. So the last thing we want to add is a button that will help us to save whatever we were saving. So the button we act as a saving kind of, I think I need to create, okay, let me use this one. Oh, no need. So moving down, I need to add a divider as well. Okay, and we have a save icon, right? So I'm going to add a padding around this, so more like to give it, no, not like this, I think a margin only left, which is going to be 10. Cool. So we can go ahead and wrap this with a gesture detector because it's a save button, right? So it needs to be clickable. All right, I think we are now good with everything. The UI looks great, just as the video that I showed you guys before. You can see everything is looking perfect and great, but not really perfect though, because I think we need to add some kind of things inside our preview layout, because I need to, like, you know, style this preview layout very well. Don't worry, this code is going to be available on GitHub, so you guys can play around with it and do whatever you want to do. So we have a width of this 1.5, we have a background color, and we can align this stuff to be at the center, right? Cool. You can see now there's a space to actually show the main background and also the main UI, right? So it's going to match just the size of the frame. So that's how our screenshot is going to look like when we build it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now is to add a padding above this, not like a padding, but I think it's a padding, you know, more like making it top. So we're going to add a padding here. So edge inset dot only top is going to be 10 Abby. Awesome, everything is looking great and fantastic. And think we also need to add another thing. I think that's pretty much it. So if we want to take the screenshot, this is the screenshot that we are going to take, this very screen, okay, that has the title, the background color, and the device frame. Okay, so you want to take note of that. But for now, we are not taking screenshots, so we are only going to, like, add the various, we are going to integrate the provider to add the various logic. So when we type a text, it's going to take effect on the UI, right? So that's what I'm going to be adding now. So the next thing that is on my list is the provider. Yeah, so I'm going to create a general provider here, and I'm also going to create an abstract class that we more like you know, the abstract class will just like define the various methods that we need. So inside here, I'm going to create, inside our general provider, I will have an abstract class. So let's say an interface here. So I will call it toolspot. Okay, so the first thing we want to have is a method to change background color, right? Which is this icon. That's why we have that icon there. to change background color, and it takes only one parameter, which is color. Okay, make sure you import it. And we have another one again, which is change text color. Okay, so this method will be called when we click on this icon here. All right, the next one represents pick app image. Okay, so that's when we want to add a new image. It takes 0 properties. So when you click on app image, this method will be called. And we have insert text. So this insert text is going to handle, it's going to take the index, index, and also the value, which is the string. Okay, so remember this, we are using it for these two guys. So enter title is going to have an index of 0, enter subtitle is going to have an index of 1. Okay, and once this stuff, this stuff has an unchanged property, once it's called, the value is going to return inside this value, this string. Okay, so you're going to see how I'm going to implement all that. Okay, so next we are going to have another method for changing dimensions. Okay, we're still going to have integer of ints and also a value, right? Change dimension will be called when user changes their dimension value. So width is going to be of 0 index and height is going to be of 1 index, right? The next thing we are going to do is to change, is to switch the platform. So we need to switch platform. So, and remember we created an enum. We created an enum here, which is the platform type. So that's what we're going to be used between iOS and Android. So when you switch the platform, the markup is going to change based on the platform that you are changing to. So that means we are going to have platform. Okay, like so. Cool. And the next thing we are going to do is to change layout. Okay, change layout, which is tablet or phone. Also remember that we added a markup layout type here. So that means I need to change this guy to markup layout type and change this guy to a type, right? And the next and the final one that we have, the final method, is actually capture and save markup. Okay, which is our design. So we're going to save it inside the user's folder. All right, so this is pretty much the method that we need. So I'm going to create, since we have our provider, so I'm going to be creating a class, a provider class, and I'm going to call this tools provider, and I'm going to extend change notifier, and then I'm going to implement. I think I need to import this. I'm going to implement the interface class that I created, which is toolspot. I think the spelling is wrong here, so it's supposed to be tools spot, right? So it's going to tell us that there are some missing concrete implementation. So that means we need to import the 8 missing overrides. So you can see all of them. This is just simple when we want to work with our provider. So we don't need to be creating the method one after the other. This alone will just define the method that we need. If you want to add other methods, you can go ahead and add them, right? So what happens here now? First thing we are going to do is to change background color, right? So for that, remember we have our UI. Remember we have the toolbar layout where we have this guy. I think I need to add a show color picker method, right? Where is the color? Change color. Yeah, change background color. So what we need to do here is just to call show color picker, and that means we need to pass the background, right? Is background, because it's going to handle for changing of color, text color, and also changing of this guy. So is background is going to be more like background color is going to be true, right? Which is for is background. So I'm going to create a method for it. So inside here we are going to have, okay, so we have more like initial color for it, because it's going to need an initial color. You can look at if you look at the package on pub.dev, you're going to see this example. Okay, so we can go ahead and use it. And then next, what I need to do is to actually, no, this is not supposed to be inside here, so it's supposed to be outside the method. Okay, so inside here I'm going to return an alert dialog. Okay, that means we need to import the color picker plugin, right? So once you have that in place, we also need to add a button. So we'll be using elevated icon for this. So once you select, we're going to call done, and this means we are going to be calling this method that we have inside here, which is change BG color or change text color, whatever it is. So we need to use kind of going back to our toolbar. Two methods are going to be calling this color picker, right? Which is one bool, let's say is BG, that means is background, right? So we are going to have a switch statement here, or a if statement here. So if is BG, if is background, that means I'm going to say, I'm going to change background color, right? So if else, if is not background, that means it's text, so I need to change text color, right? Cool. So that means this show color picker means I need to call it in two places. The first one, I'm going to call it inside the change background color, just as I did here. I'm also going to call it inside the text, but now I'm going to set it to false because it's not for background, it's for text. So when you click on this icon, it's going to bring up the color picker for us that we can change, and when you click on done, it's going to change, right? You also have the text too, and it's going to change, right? Cool. So now let's implement the general provider for it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a simple variable here that I will call BG color, okay? And I can initialize it to an initial color of, let's say, kind of a dark gray kind of color, so like so. And yeah, that's it. I'll also create the same thing again for text color, okay? So text color is going to be all white. Okay. So what happens when we call on the change BG color? So what we are going to do here for change BG color is just to call, once the color is being passed, we can now say BG color equal to color, and then now we can call notify listener. Doing the same thing too for change text color. So that means we need to call text color equal to color dot notify listener, right? So this in place now. I'm going to go back to our tools layout. Okay, so inside our tools layout, I'm going to wrap this UI, like the whole of this column, with a consumer widget, so it will actually provide us with that listener for the tools provider. Okay, and I'm going to set this to a consumer, and it's going to have a model or like a general listener. Okay, but if I save it, I think there will be some errors because this provider has not been registered something. Yeah, so we have not registered the consumer, so that means I need to go to our main.dat. So inside here, I'm going to wrap this guy with a, I need to like create a multi-provider or a provider, if whatever one we want to use. So I'll just wrap, I like using a multi-provider because I don't know when it will require me to add more providers, so I like using it multi-provider. Okay, so instead of this, it's going to be providers. So this guy is going to move inside child, yeah, right? So inside our provider, we need to have provider, what's it called again? Change notifier provider. We have our contest, and we can return our tools provider. Okay, tools provider. So we just have to register it. Cool. So I think it looks great, no errors this time around. So you can close the screen, go back to our general provider. We have implemented the method for changing text color and also for changing background color, right? So we're going to go back to our tools provider. Okay, so inside our tools provider, now what we are going to do is when a user clicks on our dialog, we need to like request for the provider, so it will help us to change the color accordingly. So inside here, I'm going to create another parameter that takes the tools provider, that takes the model. Okay, so once users click on change BG color, I'm going to call model.change background color, and then I'm going to send the picker color that the users selected, right? Same thing to be applied for the test, but now it's not going to be change BG color, rather it's going to be change test color. All right, so somewhere is showing red, so that means I need to pass the model from the provider, the consumer widget that I created. Okay, so this is coming from this guy here. Yeah, it's coming from this model. But right now, if I select a color and change it, nothing happens. Okay, see, done is not working. Let's see what is causing that. When we click on done, it's supposed to like, you know, remove that. So we need to call navigator.pop. Okay, so once it has been set, we need to pop the widget. We need to pop the dialog, sorry. So click this, we can select the color and pop. But right now the color is not changing, right? So what I want to do is, when a user change or selects a background color, I want this background to be changed, and this one I will add some kind of opacity to it. And once the user clicks on change text color, I'm going to change the text color of this guy. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go to our preview layout. Okay, still I'm going to wrap this guy with a consumer widget, okay, to give us access to it. And this is going to be a tools provider, and remove this guy, and we're also going to have a model, the child. Okay, so what happens here is this color is going to have, is going to take instead of colors.black, we are going to say models.text color. Okay, we are also going to do the same thing here, models.text color. So it's going to be listening to whatever values that this guy changed to, like the color. Once we change the value, the text color is going to change, and our preview UI too is going to change. So let's test for the test. You can see now it's white. If you go here and select it to be purple, you can see it has changed to purple. Awesome. So I'm going to do the same thing to here to the color, which is the gray. Instead of it being gray, I'm going to say model.bg color, right? You can see the color. If you change it now to purple, it's going to change to purple. But I don't want this color to always remain blue, so that means we need to change this color to model.bg color with opacity. Okay, let's say 0.2. So whenever it changes, this guy is going to change a little bit. Okay, so let's change it to purple. It's going to change a little bit based on the background color. Awesome. So now we have that one in place. So the next thing I want to do now is to switch between Android and iOS, okay, and also to switch between tablets and phone, right? So to do that, I'm going to go back to where we have, I'm going to go back to our general layout, okay? So for this, I need to create I'm going to create a parameter which is called platform type, because we created an enum for which, right? So we're going to say selected platform, which is going to be platform. Initially, it's going to be platform type.android, right? Okay, awesome. So once user change a platform, which is, I think we have the method here, change switch platform, right? So I'm going to say selected platform equal to platform. And here I'm going to say notify listener. All right, so what happened to our tools layout where we have change platform? I think it's kind of somewhere around here. I can't find it. Okay, we have this guy for changing of platform, right? So I'm just going to call model.change switch platform. Then I'm going to pass this platform inside, right? So I need to do some few things here. So if model.selected platform is equal to platform, right? I want the color to be blue, else I want it to be gray. Save it and try to select. You can see we select iOS, is changing accordingly. Awesome, cool. But now we need to change this frame to match Android or iOS, right? So I'm going to go down to where we have this, where we have our frame. I think we have this should be inside the preview layout, right? So we have our device frame here. So I'm going to do the same thing. If model dot selected platform, okay, is equal to platform type dot Android. So I'm going to be using I think Samsung S20 for this. So I will say Android dot Samsung, yeah, Samsung Galaxy S20. So this should work. So save it. So if it's iOS, it's going to show iPhone image. So you can see now we are actually on Android. So you can see the UI is changing to this. I think I need to add some. Let's add some padding here. Some, yeah, space. So you can see if I select iOS, the mockup changes to iPhone 13. If I select Android, the mockup changes to Samsung Galaxy 13. So this is pretty much how it works. So the next one I want to do is to switch between the layout view. That means tablet or phone. Okay. So if it's a phone UI, it's going to stay like this. If it's a tablet UI, it's going to change to a tablet view, right? So that's what I'm going to be doing now. So I'm going to move back to the general layout. So where we have we're going to have another one, which is a mockup type under here. Initially, the initial mockup is going to be phone. Okay, selected mockup type is going to be phone. So I'm going to change it here, change layout. So I'm going to say selected mockup equal to type and call notify listener. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to our tools layout and see where we are changing the mockup type, which is this guy. So I'm going to call model.change layout, and I'm going to call it, instead of platform, it's going to be type, right? So it's not going to be platform, rather it's going to be type. So that means I also need to change this guy to type. So once it's selected, so if model.selected mockup layout is equal to type, I'm going to return a blue color, else I'm going to return colors.gray. Okay, cool. You can see now it's changing accordingly, but now the mockup is not changing, right? So that means I need to go back to our preview layout, and then inside this preview layout, I'm going to change the mockup based on how I want it to look like. Okay, so for this, I have the mockup. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to check if I'm going to check for some conditions here. So I think I need to modify this a little bit. So if model, I think I already have this guy. So instead of doing it from scratch again, it's going to take a long time. So we have this. You can see if model.selected platform is equal to iOS and model.selected mockup is equal to phone, return iOS iPhone 13. Also, if model.selected platform is equal to iOS and model.selected layout is tablet, then return a tablet, an iPad, right? If model is Android and the mockup is tablet, then return a small tablet for Android. Else, we are going to return a Samsung Galaxy S20. So see how it works now. Since it's Android and phone is returning a phone view. If we select tablet, it's going to return a tablet view, right? If we select iOS, it's going to return an iPad. If we select phone, it's going to return an iPhone 13. Cool. So that's pretty much it for this guy. And the next thing we are going to do now is to create a general provider that will help us to pick. Now we want to pick an image, right? So we help us to pick an image. So what I'm going to do is to have a, remember we already have our image picker added. So that means I need to initialize image picker here. So I'm going to have image picker I will call this one picker image and initialize it here, right? So I'm going to have a nice looking selected image string. Sorry, I say nice looking. So I'm going to have a string and say selected image. Initially is going to be an empty string, right? So going back to our preview layout, I'm going to check for some condition here. So if I'm going to check if the model.selected image is equal to an empty string. So I'm going to return this guy, no image selected, right? So if it's not equal to an empty string, if it's not equal to an empty string, I'm going to return the mockup right inside the widget. So I'm going to return image. So here we'll be returning a image.network image. So the reason why I'm returning network image is because the image picker, when we use it on the web, it returns the path in form of a blob. Okay, so it doesn't return it as a PNG or JPEG just as it is for iOS and Android. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use network, and this network it has a source, so I'll use model.selected image. Okay, and I also want to give it a fit, which is boss fit.cover. No. All right, so this works. I think there's some errors here. All right, cool. So this is it for the whole UI stuff. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and write the logic for actually changing, I think, picking the image. Okay, so remember we are going to be using we are going to be using the image picker to get this done. So what I'm going to be doing is to use, I'm going to create a file here because image picker returns an S file, right, with the path. Okay, so I'm going to make this an asynchronous method. So I have to add a sync here. So I'll have my await picker dot. Remember, this picker is something we created here. We've already created the instance of the image picker. Yeah. So we have picker dot pick image. Okay, then you have to like specify the source. So here the source is image source dot gallery. Okay, and what we can do here is to check if image is not equal to null. That means the user picked something. So we can just say selected image equal to image dot path. All right, and then we can notify listener. Right, cool. So save this up. So what we are going to do now is to try and pick an image, right? So I'm going to click on upload image. Okay, I think I've not added that method. So I will go to my toolbar screen and go to where we have the upload image, right? So I'm going to say model dot pick app image. Awesome. So save it. And the one I'm going to do now is to click on upload image. It's going to bring up the image selector, image picker. So I will need to like look for where I saved that PNG. So this is it. So I want to like pick one of these, and you can see it's going to like fill in the screen, right? Awesome. So since you are doing for Android iOS, you can just change it to iOS mockup, and tablet is going to like scatter it. So let's just stick with this one. You can see how awesome it is. But now we have not implemented the title, subtitle, and the dimensions. So that's the next thing we are going to do now. So going back to our general provider, what we are going to do, we're going to create another one for inserting text. Okay, so remember I told you that for text insertion we have the title and the subtitle, and the title is going to have an index of 0 and the subtitle is going to have an index of 1. Okay, so we have the insert text here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be using a switch for this guy. So I'll pass the index. Okay, so I will check if the index is 0, that is, a case, the first case. So I have my title. I'm going to have a string somewhere which is more like title text and a subtitle text. Okay, so I'm going to create them above here. So we have title text and the subtitle text, right? So what I'm going to be doing now, let me go back to this guy. So I'm going to say if it's 0, that means I want to change the title text, right? I'm not going to initialize it to the value. Okay, and then call notify listener, and you can break it here. Okay, so don't want it to continue. Then L, if the case is 1, we just have to do subtitle test equal to value. Okay, and you can call notify listener as well and break it. Cool. Now this is not going to work, right? Because we need to go back to our home toolbar screen. Okay, so where we have the enter test, the unchanged property. So once the user is typing, we need to set the value. So we're going to call model.insert test. The index for title is going to be 0, and then we'll pass the value. Okay, we'll do the same thing for title, subtitle, but now the index is going to be 1. Okay, now this works. While we are typing, you can see it to be going in gradually, because if you print on this on change, let's say print value, and you will notice that it's okay, subtitle, sorry, you can notice that it's going to be printing out the value inside here, right? So yeah, so we are going to like go over that one. So what I'm going to do now, since the test is adding, right, I need to like render it inside our preview screen, preview layout, where we have our title goes here. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to say model.title test, okay, and I will do the same thing here too, model.subtitle test. All right, so save it. Once we start typing, let's say hello world, it will now be taking effect inside here, and the subtitle too will also take effect. You can see, cool. So this is pretty much it for the design. So yeah, I will go ahead and remove this. So the next thing I want to do is to add the width and the height, which is more like to add the dimensions, right? So we have the dimension side for the toolbar. I think we have the width and the height. So I'll still do the same thing, similar thing that I did, because the index is going to be 0, the other index is going to be 1, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a width and a height, okay, for the dimensions, right? So you're going to have hint and height. So I'll still go back to my general provider, right? And under here, I'm going to have this, okay? So where we have our change dimension, I will still do the same thing that I did for the insert test, right? Because it is still the same kind of flow that we're going to take. So in here, I'm going to have, if switch index is 0, that means we're actually changing the width, right? So I will say width, okay, equal to the value, right? But in this case, it's going to be, we are going to pass it to an integer, right? Int dot pass value. That's because this width is actually an integer, right? So for subtitle, for the one index, we are going to use height, and I'm also going to use int.pass value. All right, so save that up, and now we are good with it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go back to our toolbar layout. So in here, I'm going to say model dot change dimension. I'll pass the first index. So for height, the index is going to be 0, and then the value pass. So I'll do the same thing too for the width. The index is going to be 0, and the value passed. Awesome. So now what I'm going to do now is to create a method for, I think it's pretty much everything here is now working perfectly, right? So I think the only thing that is left is for us to integrate the save functionality. So looking at the interface methods that we created, you can see the only thing left is only this capture and save mockup. So this place is where we are going to be using the screenshot. We are going to be using the screenshot plugin that we added, the screenshot package that we added to screenshot the screen. So we are only screenshotting this place, this view, which is more like the only place we want to view, okay? And also we are only screenshotting this view and the mockup and any text that is inside, okay? So once we screenshot it, the next thing we are going to do is to save it inside. We are going to save it inside the, what's it called? We are going to like save it in the users directory, and then specifying a name using the file saver to save it. We'll use image to manipulate it and then give it the dimension that we want, okay, based on the dimension that the user entered here. So what I want to do first, remember the screenshot, we need we need a screenshot controller. So I'll do everything inside our tool provider. Okay, so we have a screenshot controller. So inside our preview screen, okay, this is the beginning of our UI, which is this guy. So this is the beginning part. We don't want to like screenshot this outer region. We want to screenshot this container. So this is the beginning of the container. So what this means is that I'm going to wrap it with the screenshot based on that is what I want to, capture. So I'm going to wrap it with the screenshot widget coming from that screenshot plugin that we added, and it takes a controller. So the controller is already created inside our model, which is the screenshot controller. Cool. Now it's set. We don't need to do anything again. So whenever we click on capture, it's going to capture this whole screen. Right now, I can close the preview layout because there's no much thing we need to do there anymore. So I'll go back to our general provider and inside our screenshot provider. So what I'm going to do now is to save that particular stuff. So in order to save and capture and save mockup, I need to check first to be sure that this dimension is not empty. Okay, so I'm going to check if height is not equal to null and weight is not equal to null. Okay, because this is, we don't want to like pass null as the dimension because it will cause some kind of issues. Okay, so you want to make sure you check that to be more like validating the feed to be sure that it's not null before doing anything. Okay, in your case you might want to like show a snack bar or a message to just tell user, hey, impute. You can just say print, hey, impute height and width sorry. Okay, so if you click on save, you just see the stuff printing out here because it's null. We have not integrated the method here for save. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my tool screen, and inside the save method, I'm going to have model.capture and save mockup. Okay, so here we go back to our general preview, and if I click on save, you can see it's telling us impute height and width. So that means it has not imputed, it has not been added. Okay, so that's aside. And the next thing I want to do now is to add, because we need to show a kind of a loading indicator, right? But that will be something we'll fix later. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a capture, right? So I'm going to create a variable for the capture, like to capture the screen. So I have capture, right? And it's going to be an asynchronous function too. So we're going to say await screen controller, which is the one we created here. Okay, and we have already passed it inside our layout view, right? Preview layer, sorry, which is the controller, right? So I'm going to say controller.capture. Okay, and it has a property aspect ratio if you want to set the aspect ratio and duration, but I'm going to leave my own like that, so not adding anything. Okay, so next thing we are going to do now is to actually manipulate the image. Okay, so I need to like manipulate the image to set the image. Okay, so I need to manipulate the image to set the dimension and everything. So first thing I want to do is to decode the image that was captured. Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to be importing the image widget, image dependency that we added as img. Okay, all right, so once that is done, I'm going to come here, and the next thing I'm going to do is to have the image image, right? And I will say captured image. So, and you can just say img, which is the image dot decode image. Okay, here I'm not going to pass the captured image. Okay, capture, right? What was captured, right? It's actually a null something, so we want to return it this way. And then the next thing I'm going to do now is to resize the image based on the dimension that was provided, right? So I'm going to like resize image, and we'll now call copy resize. Okay, so it has this property that we can use. Then now we'll pass the source. The source is not going to be the decoded image, which is the captured image. And then we specify the width, which is going to be the width, okay, and the height also the height here. And yeah, I think that's it. So once we do that, we are now going to convert the resized image to a uint list, okay, to a byte. We are going to convert it back to a byte. So that means we are going to use this guy, uint list, okay. So I'm going to say resize byte, because when we are saving it to the file, we need to save bytes, right? Cool, because you can still save this capture directly, but it's not going to take the dimension that you want. So we need to like manipulate it, change the size and width and everything, and then we can now change it. Uint list, uint 8 list, okay, and yeah, uint 8 list dot thing from list, okay, yeah, from list. Then we have the image. We are now going to encode it back to PNG. So we call dot encode. I think is encode PNG, right? Then we pass in the resized image. Awesome. So once we get that, we are now going to call the save method, right? So we're going to call file saver dot instance, okay, dot save file. Save as, it has a save as property, but it doesn't work for web. So that save as only work for Android and iOS, okay. So we have a save file. You can pass in the name. That means in your own case, you can just bring up a dialog or a pop-up for the user, so that we just have to put in their name, okay. Just have a dialog. They will put in the name of the file, how they want to save it as. Then you can pass it here. Then we have a byte. You can save a file. You can save a file part. You can save, but in this case, we want to save a byte, right? So that means I can just pass a name, Destiny Ed. Okay, let me use that one. Then we can now pass the bytes. The byte is going to be the resized bytes. Okay, we also have the MIME type, which is how we want to save it. So I will say .png. All right, so that's pretty much it. And once that is saved, we can just go ahead and, you know, it's just going to do its magic. Okay, but there will be some glitches here because there's no loading. Since it's asynchronous, it's going to hang our UI, and the user might not really know what is going on, and it will make them now to not click on it twice, you know, or multiple times. So let's first of all upload an iOS image, okay, and put a name, title goes here, okay, and then we can put subtitle hello world. All right, we can change the background color to, if you want it to be white, no problem. You want the text color to be black, so it will be visible, okay. So once you do that, you want to add the width and the height, okay. So since we are doing for iOS, Android, I'm going to set the width and the height to be 11 Pro, like 1125 as the width, and the height is going to be 2436, yeah. Okay, so once that is done, you click on save, right? You can see now nothing is happening, but something is going on behind the scenes. So it's not like a good practice, because now the image is saved. If you look here, you're going to see we have the image here, okay. So this is the image, the mockup. It has been saved as a PNG inside my file explorer. You see that? So what we are going to do next now is to, what I'm going to do next is to show a loading indicator, right? So I already have this busy overlay that I normally use whenever I'm creating any app, you know. So I'm going to create a util. Feel free to use it if you want, okay. So I normally use it as a busy overlay to just show something on top of my UI while it's loading, okay. So while it's there, I'm going to go to my home page, okay. I'm going to wrap my scaffold now with consumer widgets, okay. So I'll have my tools provider. So that busy overlay will just show an overlay widget on top that says, hey, something is loading, so hold on, you know. So we have model.child, okay. So what I'm going to do now, I need to go back to my general provider, right? And I want to create a variable up here somewhere that says is a Boolean value, it's loading. So which means let's just say it's busy, okay, equal to false. So initially it's going to be false. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come here. So once the user clicks on this button, right, I want to say is busy equal to true. So that means it's going to be true. That means something is going on. Then I will call notify listener. And then once it's done, everything is done, I can now come here and say is busy equal to false. Okay, and call notify listener. Cool. So I'll go back to my home page here, and I will come here. Since I've wrapped it with a consumer widget, I'm going to wrap my scaffold widget with a busy overlay, which is that util stuff that I added, a busy overlay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it has a property called show. You can see so many things you can change. So it has a show property. If we say show true, see what happens. It will just be showing the busy overlay on top of it because the show is true. Just watch it. You can see it's just showing please wait, and the user cannot interact with the UI. So in this case, I don't want it to just show like that. I want it to show when we are trying to process something. So in that case, I'm going to say model dot is busy is equal to true. So whenever it's true, that's when this guy is going to work. So moving on, I'm going to set the title and say YouTube video subscribe and give thanks. Okay, all right. So and the next thing I want to do now is to upload the image that I want. So I will just use let me use an Android for now. So I'm going to use an Android image. Okay, so here I'm going to set the Android, yeah, and the width. So the dimension I'm going to use 1080, and I'm going to use here 1920 as the dimension. So when I click on save, you can see the busy overlay is showing. So until it's complete, once it's complete, it's going to go off and we see our stuff. So if I can see this now, so this is our UI, YouTube video, subscribe and give thanks, but it's looking kind of, stretched a little. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to like apply some kind of fix thing inside the preview layout, because I need to set how the padding should look like. Okay, so I will go to my screenshot where we have preview layout. So inside here we have horizontal, right? So if the platform is iOS, I want it to be 30, but if the platform is Android, I want it to be 50. So I can just do something like model.selected platform is equal to platform type dot iOS, return 30. Okay, else I'll just return 50. So it's not a constant here. So I'm going to remove it. Okay, all right, I'll do the same thing again with the same dimension and see how it works. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, Android iOS. I'm going to upload one image for Android, and the background color, let's use purple. Let's use the text color as black. Okay, let's use white. Okay, and we have blocker app, search restriction. Okay, and right here now I'm going to like set the width and the height, right? The width is going to be 1080, okay, by, since this is for Android, 1080 by 1920. So depending on the dimension you want to add. So I'm going to save it, and it's going to bring up the so I'm going to like open it up, so you can see now it's no more looking too stretchy like that. Okay, so you can actually see how awesome it is. With this now you can upload it to your Play Store or App Store, just to generate. So let's do another one again for iOS. So in this case, I'm going to replace this image with an iOS image. Okay, all right, so you want to set the width and the dimension for iOS device, so which is, we can use let's say you can just use 1 this is something like what dimension are we using? Okay, for iOS it's going to be 1125. okay, okay, 1125 by we'll say 2436. Okay, save it, and yep, we have this guy up and running. So let me open it for iOS. Cool. You can see how iOS mockup looks. You can see how Android mockups looks. So this is so cool and it's so amazing. So cool. So you can go ahead and experiment with it and see how it works. Thank me later, guys. All right. So with this, we have come to the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for your time. So I've really explained a lot of things from how to use screenshots plugin, how to save file in your web browser, how to use image to manipulate file by setting extension, how to use image picker, device frame provider. I believe you have learned a lot, and also the color picker. So a lot has been said already in this course. Okay, so just go ahead, play with it, give it a like, give it a thanks. Whatever challenge you like, you have, just put it down in the comment section below. And I plan to make this stuff open source. So if you really want me to make it open source, let me know also in the comment section. And this project will be available on GitHub. So if you have anything that you want to modify, that you want to change, put it down in the comment section, or like you can just fork the repository and create a PRO. I'm going to merge it, and I plan to make it to look like an extension, a Chrome extension. And I think it's something I'm going to show you guys how to do that in my next video. Okay, take care and stay safe.